The 50-strong Novocastrian Productions cast and crew have been rehearsing The Sound of Music for 2.5 months. Director Don McEwen says they've tried hard to give the production a professional look.
As far as the staging, the setting is concerned, we've spent a fair amount of money on that with designers and also materials, etc., and the lights. I have a tendency sometimes to change things quite radically, which some people annoy some people and some people enjoy a great deal. But with this one, it's fairly straight.
Don saw the show as the perfect vehicle for leading lady Susan Elliott. Although 27, she's a relative newcomer to the stage, but according to Don, playing Maria brilliantly.
She's showing tremendous promise, and I think she'll do this part extremely well. But I'm looking forward to what she's going to do in the future too, because she's got a tremendous amount of talent.
It's opening night for Susan and the cast tomorrow. All proceeds will go to Ronald McDonald House.
Newcastle City Council today officially acknowledged industry and community groups who are working to make the city a cleaner and greener place.
The community have said to Council, we want a pollution-free city, and that's what we are doing here at the Council. But we can't do it alone, and we need the help from the industries and community groups.
Taking the honours at Council's inaugural Environmental Achievement Awards in the community category was the Association for Environmental Education. The industry section had joint winners, the Royal Newcastle Hospital for its efforts in reducing its waste by 75% and Newcastle Galvanising for pollution control measures. Coca-Cola Bottlers Newcastle won the Environmental Audit Award. The company recycles or reuses 95% of its waste. For example, the oils used in machinery are reprocessed and sold, as are empty aluminium cans, cardboard boxes, glass bottles, even the plastic wrapping on PET bottles. The PET bottles are reduced to granulated form at an ACI plant in Wodonga. The granules are then exported to America, where they're used in several processes, including the backing on carpets and the lining in ski jackets.
What we've got to do is identify all the waste materials we generate from our own process, and you will find those materials are actually the lifeblood of other companies and other types of business.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Construction of the freeway between Sydney and Newcastle has been dubbed the nation's largest ever rural roads project. While it's taken 30 years to finish, the project could be described as far from complete. Motorists heading beyond Newcastle on the Pacific or New England highways face temporary road links, including Lennigans Drive Black Hill being used for up to 6 years. Road safety improvements had been promised, especially a flyover at the intersection of John Renshaw Drive and the New England Highway. A stopgap measure, traffic lights having replaced a stop sign at this dangerous intersection. The precaution defended by Federal Transport Minister Bob Collins.
We've spent $15 million on the temporary links so far and upgrading them in cooperation with the RTA, and the important thing to stress is that they are temporary links.
The latest section of freeway extends the motorway by 19 kilometres and has been built at a cost of $175 million. Official opening of the section was marked with Minister Collins unveiling a plaque which bore this inscription about the completion of the project from the minister's predecessor, Charlton MP Bob Brown.
We've got an obligation to fund the designated national highway, and as I've just said a few moments ago, we're engaged in an EIS process at the moment to determine the final route for the connector, which will be a very expensive project as well.
In addition to the freeway, travel from Newcastle to Sydney has been vastly improved, with completion of the Newcastle Link Road providing improved access to the F3. The 7-kilometre project cost $50 million to bring to reality. While Newcastle and Sydney now have direct freeway linkage, completion of the next section to the New England Highway at Branxton remains the Hunter's outstanding national highway question.
It's going to take about a year to complete the EIS, and one of the reasons for that, can I say, is that this is some of the toughest country in Australia to build these kinds of projects through, and so the EIS process is extremely important.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Bullaroo's branch of the Westpac Bank has welcomed customers for the past 56 years. Next January, the doors will close and the service will be amalgamated with the Warners Bay branch. The announcement has come as a shock to bank management and staff, but more so to local residents and retailers.
Well, for myself, I sort of can close the shop for 5 minutes and dash up and do my banking, but now I've got to close up, get in the car, drive all the way to Warners Bay, and hopefully not line up and get back as soon as I can. So it's sort of a problem.
With all the promotions that we've put on of recent, all the business people, the town's booming. And it's just devastated the business people in the town that our major bank's going to close.
And it could be a double blow, with rumours that Bullaroo's branch of the Commonwealth Bank is also likely to decrease its services in the near future. In protest to the Westpac closure, the community has organised a petition. A spokesperson from Westpac said the move was part of an ongoing review of customer services. He said although some accounts were based at Bullaroo, records showed most customers were banking and shopping at Warners Bay.
I don't believe that, because I spoke only as late as yesterday to a past bank manager, and he told me that it was one of the most lucrative branches in the state and the most unique branch that Westpac's got. It'll be terrible if it goes, really terrible.
Melinda Smith, NBN News. The stars of the show were students from Newcastle's Catholic high schools. As nighttime approached, the audience began settling in. When proceedings didn't go according to plan, a little help was close by. Back on stage, things were rocking. And there was something for every type of music lover. It's the first time such an event has been organised by the combined Catholic high schools, and everyone agreed it was a sparkling success.
"90 barefooters converged on the banks of the Manning River at Andrews Reserve. The race is held over 350 metres, where competitors travel at speeds of up to 140 kilometres an hour. The Australian record for the distance is 15.72 seconds. A slight crosswind on the river meant nobody would beat that time, and it also ensured plenty of spills. Some of the country's best exponents of the spectacular sport still managed to reach exceptionally high speeds, including Australian champ Gary Adams. The finals of the 13 categories will be held tomorrow. Jason Neuenhoff, NBN News.
A number of polling booths were in operation today to allow Aboriginal people to elect their regional council representatives. The Hunter and Central Coast, which are contained in the Gatang ward, will have a dozen representatives on a 20-member Coffs Harbour Regional Council. Councillors elected from today's poll will be responsible for the allocation of federal funds to Aboriginal organisations. It's believed one reason for the low voter turnout was the lack of publicity about the election. The poll is conducted by the Australian Electoral Commission, with the performance of 8 lower Hunter candidates expected to be known next week.
Forever Ingenue at 5 to 1 took the money from Diversify and Calvados Charm. The Quinella $14.70, Trifecta $116.20. And at Caulfield Race 6, the Harvey Picken Handicap, Favourite Love Comes to Town got up over Delgara and Skybird. The Quinella $11.50, Trifecta $226.80.
Elderly people living on their own in inner-city suburbs of Newcastle like Hamilton and Lambton are the prey of the conman, who concocts various stories to gain their confidence.
He's been coming up with a story that an elderly person around the neighbourhood has been taken ill, and they've asked him to mind a large sum of money for him, and using this as to trick them into showing them where they hide their money, actually asking the people to take the money into the house with him and making sure himself that his money is secure.
The conman has struck 4 times in the past week, the most recent being here in Hamilton on the weekend. The conman entered the house of an elderly gentleman. While the owner wasn't looking, he made off with $1,000 the elderly gent had hidden in a room. Police are now warning people of what to do if approached by the conman.
Not to let any suspicious people into their homes, or if they see any people approach them and ask them with this request, to certainly contact their local police.
The conman is aged in his 40s to 50s, of solid build with fair collar-length hair, is clean-shaven and has an olive complexion. Police suspect this man may be the same person believed responsible for a series of similar events 6 months ago. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Paul Harrigan is thankful in more ways than one. His doctor insisted on an arthroscope. For months he'd complained of soreness in his left knee but didn't think it was anything to worry about. A look around inside the knee with a small camera found a rapidly growing spur that was ready to slice his cruciate ligament in half.
Luckily for me they found it now and not halfway through the year, and maybe if I kept going it would have beaten straight through the ligament and maybe would have caused a full reconstruction.
With the knee open, doctors cut the spur off immediately and repaired the cartilage. With intensive physio, he may be able to run again by late January and be back at full strength by the official start of the season in March.
It is a little bit of a concern that I'm missing out on my preparation, and the last 2 years, which have been probably my best years, I've had good off-seasons, so that's the only thing that does worry me a little bit, but that's the way it is.
And with 1994 a kangaroo tourist year, Harrigan is more than happy to have his leg up at this stage of the season rather than selection time. Darren Curtis, NBN News.
The North American softwood was planted at the time the courthouse was established 120 years ago. Through the years it grew, and by 1901 was beginning to dwarf the substantial post office building next door. When lightning struck it last summer, it was hoped the tree would survive, but that wasn't to be, so today Roy Cody was brought in to deliver the coup de grace. So much preparation, like traffic rerouting, had already gone into the task that the rain wasn't going to deter anyone. So with safety ropes in place, Roy set about the task with dexterity and skill. But very little will be wasted. The Department of Court Administration still owns the tree and will send it to the nearby Glenelgin Prison Farm timber mill.
Even some of the larger branches could be good for wood turning or various other sort of activities, but it's not. I thought the spoils were mine, but unfortunately they're not.
Bad luck, Roy, but the court won't be missing out. The timber produced at Glenelgin will be used to manufacture furniture for the courthouse complex.
Most of the 40 permanent and casual workers who had been employed at the floating dock met at Carrington Bowling Club this morning. They were given a report on a Federal Industrial Relations Commission hearing into the dispute, which led to their retrenchment and has left the floating dock idle with no prospect of work. Metal Workers State Organiser Mary McGill says the situation remains at a stalemate.
The verdict is that we continue our stance, that we try to fight to get the agreement maintained until April. Our members are not prepared to budge. They've also had an up-to-date report on the Commission hearing yesterday. Of course, after some 5.5 hours, discussions broke down.
Men are threatening to picket the dockyard if Forjax makes any attempt to reopen it, and wider union support will be called for.
The yard will either stay closed or it will be metal workers members that are employed back there.
That you have the Trades Hall Council behind you on that one?
We will be contacting the Trades Hall Council today.
A further meeting between union officials and Forjax to try and resolve the dispute is expected this week. If the matter can't be reconciled, the Industrial Relations Commission will be asked to arbitrate on the case.
It's an industry worth $8 billion a year to New South Wales. The state's Tourism Commission has invested $13 million in its Seven Wonders campaign and has just released the findings of its biggest ever research project. On a statewide tour, the Commission today revealed some results and made recommendations to around 40 hunter tourism operators gathered at Port Stephens.
To make themselves known that they have those attractions out there. I think far too often it's easy for us to overlook the fact that we have these attractions there and that we tend to assume that people know that we're there.
2,000 holiday makers in 4 states were interviewed, most identifying easy access, location and beauty of their destination as major draw cards. But while the Commission says the hunter has untapped potential, it needs to prepare itself for a fierce market.
Because competition is tough. Right, we've got Queensland here and Northern Territory, so we really need to work together as a state in order to get our fair share of the market.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
The guided missile frigate steamed from Sydney on her maiden voyage to Newcastle in near-perfect conditions. Out of their heads and the $600 million vessel, assembled in Melbourne with some sections built in Newcastle, quickly worked up to a cruising 15 knots. It was easy work for the gas turbine engines that are used in a DC-10 jetliner. But this is no cruise ship, it is a deadly fighting machine.
She's very capable in the 3 major warfare areas, that is anti-submarine, anti-surface and anti-air warfare, but primarily ocean escort and ocean patrol work.
The new ship is the 6th in a range of frigates built for the Royal Australian Navy and the first RAN vessel to be named Newcastle. The 213 crew went through simulated war exercises, fighting off a Mackie attack. The Newcastle Seahawk helicopter tuned its deck landings. It was an exciting time for the crew. 19-year-old Sven Scaife from the Newcastle suburb of Dudley was sailing into his home port for the first time.
Newcastle's sort of like a really close town, so with the ship this name coming in, it should be pretty good.
As some friendly dolphins swam alongside, the 4,000-tonne warship headed into Newcastle Harbour on time. Sailors lined the deck to be welcomed to the port. A giant white ensign towed by a helicopter joined spectator craft and hundreds of people as the Newcastle edged towards Lee Wharf for more celebrations. A barrage of shots were fired from Fort Scratchley, but this is only the start of a big party. The real celebrations will be on Saturday when the frigate is officially named HMAS Newcastle by the Defence Minister.
Newcastle has one of the most amazing reputations for hospitality in the Navy's eyes. One of the most favourite visits of any Navy man. We love going there, and so it really couldn't be a better combination.
The ship will be open for public inspection on Sunday. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Thornton Industrial Estate will utilise 100 hectares of the site located on the northern side of the New England Highway between Thornton and Medford. Bushland at the western end is expected to be developed first. However, Maitland resident spokesman Ian Scanlon says his group is objecting after ultrasound research discovered bats inhabiting the area.
Now, the residents group have commissioned a bat survey, and that bat survey has counted 7 different species. Now, of those species that were identified, one of those is a Schedule 12, an endangered species, and we're standing now in the habitat, the preferred habitat of that particular bat.
The greater broad-nosed bat has been identified by National Parks and Wildlife as rare in this state, but more prolific in other parts of the nation. Residents believe with the proposed industrial estate adjoining the recently gazetted Green Hills Morpeth Greenbelt, a more detailed fauna study is required for the development.
What we're asking Maitland City Council to do is, under the Interim Fauna Protection Act, is to insist that the developer undertake a comprehensive fauna study of the area.
Maitland residents say they are prepared to compromise on the project and believe the Thornton Brickwork site is a more appropriate area for development than the bushland.
The Commonwealth Bank in Derby Street has long serviced the Cooks Hill community and local businesses, but it's one of 4 branches statewide tipped to close. The opposition today released information identifying 2 Sydney branches, a Wollongong Bank and the Cooks Hill Service Centre as the next to go as the bank restructures its operations. State General Manager Dick Perkins confirmed the banks are under review, but a firm decision on their future hasn't been made. He says the number of transactions at the Derby Street branch have been falling over the years. For businesses, though, which use the branch, it's a disappointing possibility.
I do my business with that bank, and I've got to think about my business now, haven't I?
Chris Chapman has spent a lot of time promoting Derby Street as a commercial hub. He too has been angered by the possible closure.
It's just another problem that we've got to contend with at a time when we are pulling out all stops to promote our street as a historical service area of Newcastle. It's something we don't need.
While the future of the Cooks Hill branch remains uncertain, the Commonwealth Bank has determined that the Western branch will close early February. Staff will be redeployed. And on the Central Coast at Lakehaven, the bank will expand its operations in the new year. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
By tomorrow morning, certain ambulance stations across northern New South Wales will be transformed into life-saving centres of a different type. Thousands of people will learn CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. It's a simple procedure which can keep a person's heart pumping until an ambulance arrives at the scene.
Less than 10% of the population know how to save a life. What we're aiming to do in northern New South Wales tomorrow is to motivate people and then give them the rudimentary knowledge of just how to go about it.
Following the screening of NBN's documentary Project Restart, which dealt with the issue, the ambulance service has been overwhelmed by the public's desire to learn CPR. 1,100 people are expected at Hamilton Ambulance Station alone. Mannequins have been donated to illustrate how to do the procedure, and hundreds of volunteers will teach the course. Ambulance officers are well aware of the benefits of 20 minutes spent learning CPR.
We're going to put some lifesavers on the streets of New South Wales.
Most classes will be held between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. tomorrow. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
When John Kilpatrick became mayor earlier this year, he vowed to resolve the long-running controversy surrounding Green Point. Tonight, that will hopefully come to fruition. After a meeting on Friday between developer McCloys and a council task force, a proposal was agreed on which will be put to council for approval. This is a draft of the plan. The exact boundaries still have to be determined, but much of the original housing which was proposed for the site has disappeared, leaving around 85% open space. Instead of 900 houses, there will be between 480 and 500 blocks. Development will occur on land which the Mayor believes is unsuitable for anything else.
A great proportion of it is tied up in the actual existing quarry, which really is just barren ground, and part of the former mine site, which is in fact cleared. That's the great proportion of the residential land, and clearly it had no merit as a park anyway.
Believing negotiations were going nowhere, McCloys began erecting this fence around the site. If all goes well tonight and the deal is approved by council, then this fence will come down and Green Point will once again be open to the public. Council will have to compensate McCloys for lost waterfront land. The exact amount can't be divulged until it goes to council. Where that money will come from also has to be decided. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The coal industry has long been recognised as primary production's most hostile working environment. Latest statistics from the New South Wales Coal Association shows the decline in time lost through injury, which began in 1987, has continued. During the past year, open-cut mines recorded a 33% improvement, with half of them improving on their previous year's result, while underground collieries had their accident rate fall by a quarter, a large percentage recording year-on-year improvements. The total cost of workers' compensation for the coal industry in the past financial year totaled $33 million, or just over $2,000 an employee. In an effort to try and further improve safety, a national study will be carried out to identify research projects and areas of attention for accident prevention. One statistic which has pleased industry leaders: some mines lost no time because of injury, proving that result is achievable. The Coal Association has used its latest report to signal that a push may be made for reforms to the state's occupational health and safety legislation. Coal mining is treated as a special case because of its working environment. However, the association believes there is no reason why the industry's safety performance shouldn't be better than other industries.
Pasminco Metals in Lake Macquarie employs 500 people. All have been trained in CPR, and now the company is offering lessons to the spouses of its employees. Groups of a dozen spend half a day at the smelter learning cardiopulmonary resuscitation.
The response has been good. We expect about 50 people to go through, but we also intend to offer the training again in the new year.
Since the launch of NBN's Project Restart, thousands of people have learnt the technique which keeps oxygenated blood pumping to the brain until ambulance officers arrive. Phil Grogan is an accredited trainer with the National Safety Council of Australia. He has received around 200 calls in the last week from businesses, community groups and industries keen to learn how to save a life.
It's been incredible. Just as an example, there's one small community village at Fullerton Cove has just booked 60 people.
Head of the Council's First Aid Division in New South Wales is Peter Bright. He joins a growing list of people pushing for CPR to become compulsory for all drivers.
I would dearly love to see all licence holders given some form of first aid training, be it only a basic life support course or a full first aid.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Newcastle's East End was the birthplace of colonial Newcastle and formed the early foundation of the city we have today. While some of our heritage has gradually been restored, the site of the convict-built lumberyard in Scott Street still holds immense historical significance. In an effort to help with the site's restoration, Newcastle architect Barney Collins has prepared a draft urban design study which recommends an historic precinct with the lumberyard its focal point. The study aims to enhance recognition for the lumberyard.
We're really about making sure that development on the lumberyard site pertains to the interpretation and protection of the relics.
The study has set out a proposed framework for future development in the East End and also recommends the restoration of a further 3 heritage buildings.
They being the Great Northern Hotel, the north wing of the hospital and the former Coote Sailors' Home. With those 3 buildings restored, we suddenly have a beautiful Victorian core of buildings which really give character to the East End of Newcastle.
Newcastle Council is expected to consider the study early next year following public comment.
The badly decomposed body was found in a dam in rugged bushland off Main Creek Road, 10 kilometres north of Dungog. Homicide detectives from Newcastle with police from Maitland and Dungog are on the scene trying to find out what has happened. It's not known if there are any suspicious circumstances, but there have been no reports of a missing person in the region. Police have welcomed any information that the public may be able to bring forward.
It's the biggest event on the Newcastle Harness Racing Club calendar, the $20,000 recast sprint over 1,600 metres.
It's a fast race, a sprint. We've got the best track in the state, the biggest track. They run the quickest times there. We hold the New South Wales record for a mile, and hopefully that can be broken on Saturday night.
Club officials and hopeful punters met at Newcastle today for the barrier draw. The lineup features a top selection, including Insacha, winner of the recent NBN Winfield Cup, and Butler's Love, the only mare in the field.
A lot of cup winners there, Newcastle Cup, Bankstown Cup, a Queensland Christmas Cup, they've come from Victoria, Kilmore Cup winner, all over the countryside. It's going to be 4 to 1 to field, so it's a very even race and a lot of interest in the betting and could be anyone's race, 1 to 10 could win it.
Although it's nearly 2 years away, the Australian Ladies Golf Union is hard at work preparing for the huge